Okay, the time is now 9 o'clock. I'll call the joint council commissioner portion to order.
And I will also call the council part of the joint meeting to order, please. And if you would, let's all honor our country as we start this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first, I'll say sorry. I missed the conversation last week. I was out of the local area, but as I understand it, the reason we're here this morning is to talk about a suitable location for probation. And so I think all three of us are prepared to answer any questions, but we've spent the past several months looking for suitable locations. I think we've looked at just about, well, I know we've looked at every available option in the area in Columbia City for commercial space. We recently re-engaged Bowen Health and had asked them for their bottom dollar, like what is it that they have to have for that building, and as you know, like that had always been in my mind most ideal, but as we started to investigate the purchase of that building recently, we found that significant repair would be needed. So Bowen had some appraisals that we're kind of basing things off of. Their original or initial asking price was $950,000. I've seen that they've since reduced to $925,000, but they did take into account the costs for repairs and lowered. They based it on an average appraisal amount of $687,500, and reduced then the price for roof replacement by $110,820. They reduced another $126,820 for foundation repair, for a total amount of $449,860. So they made their final asking price for the county $450,000. Now we know that Mark and contractors had spent significant time there reviewing any of the repairs needed, and I know that you all have received the sheet or the document that Mark had prepared, and in a nutshell, their estimate for total repair would be $562,515, and of course that then would be in addition to what we would be paying for the building. So we've looked at the parish building. We've looked at now 4 locations from Jerry Reef, right, Rob?
Yeah.
We've considered the space that's available in the basement of this building, not only for probation, but also for maybe Purdue Extension, and perhaps probation could move into that location. We also considered the lease that we have with the state of Indiana at our county annex building, which there's still 5 years left on the terms of that lease. And in the meantime, I'm sure you've seen some of the emails that have circulated from the judges and from probation about some of the problems that they're currently having at their current location. And I will say, that there is still a cost for us to have them there, because we've agreed to share in the utility costs. And so, while nominal, I mean, we are paying the electric bill there for the square footage that probation's using. So there is a cost for them to be there. And what have I missed?
just, you hit on everything. We looked at a number of properties, and we're trying to leave no stone unturned.
Yeah. So that's where we currently are. Again, we've asked for Bowen Health's lowest costs. They provided this, then we gut checked them again and asked for them to come down a little, and they're unable to come down at all. So this is kind of the spot we're in. I will say that it's desirable to me to have that building, but at this cost, I understand that it's not most ideal. So, as far as other options, from this point, I can't help but feel like Branch Court, the current location of Purdue Extension, would be most ideal. Teresa and I went through there several years ago and toured it, and they've got a lot of stuff. They use a lot of space, and so I don't know what that would look like for them to move into this building. I don't know, but I do know that there's been some square foot comparisons that I think are maybe a little unfair, because you're not taking into account that the restrooms are down the hall and that meeting rooms, A and B, are across the hall, and that's space that could be utilized. And so I don't know that it's the best solution, but at this point, I can't help but feel like it's the most viable option. Again, Bowen Health is available. You know the costs. This estimate for repair, it could be high. We could accomplish a lot of these things for less than what the estimates are. I don't know. I'm sure Mark is here. If he would want to chime in, I hate to put him on the spot, but it's possible that some of these things might be a little high.
As far as the cost for the repairs, I would respectfully disagree. I think I'm a little low.
Okay.
On these costs. You can see the increase that happened just since January. By the time you actually got up and running and started doing these, I believe the costs are going to increase for these repairs. The roof is actively leaking. The moisture content in the building is pretty high. Ceiling tiles are sagging. We need to address that right away. It is, unfortunately, it's the entire roof, as you can see on the sheet. Even the metal on the roof is defective. The finish is coming off of it. So everything's got to be replaced on that. The termination between the Heinen building and the Bowen Center buildings, that's a disaster. It needs to be completely redone, which is in their cost. The rooftop units, roughly half of the air conditioning work, the other half doesn't. If you're talking units that are 25 years old, we could repair them for roughly $35,000, but you're still dealing with 25-year-old equipment. The plumbing, there's some issues there because the building never had a water softener. So the line buildup and all the toilets, the sinks, the drains, everything in there is going to have to be replaced. When I say drains, I mean those could be addressed as we go along. Wouldn't necessarily need to replace all the drains immediately, but we would the fixtures, the toilets, the urinals, the sinks, faucets, that kind of stuff. And then you can see the cost in there for the water softener, so we can prevent this from happening again. The painting and the flooring, that could be addressed as we go along. You could put them in there. You could occupy the building while we still address those issues. The foundation, that estimate was based off of Design Collaborative engineer, what he assessed and believes it would cost. We don't actually have any hard figures of what that would cost to repair that foundation on the west side. It's a possibility that that could be done in phases also. Won't know until we actually get into looking at hard numbers of that foundation. Is there any questions I can answer for anyone?
Was there any question of mold damage with all that humidity and moisture that's in there?
No, we did not detect any mold issues in the building.
That's good, at least.
Thanks, Mark.
Good question.
I have a question. On this building, let's say we take this building, when you do your repair work, what do you anticipate the future to be? Are we gonna look at another Marshall building? Are we gonna look at another courthouse where the repair work is astronomical and we cringe every time we hear we need to repair something? Is that building of that age that we're gonna inquire that? We're gonna see that?
If we did these repairs?
You correct?
No.
Future?
I don't think, once you've done the initial repairs, you're gonna have a solid building.
We've you know, again, we've tried to think outside of the box, and just as a reminder, like I get asked all the time, well, why didn't you build the new jail big enough to accommodate probation and these other offices that were in the basement of the old jail? And you know, the simple answer is the cost. It was cost prohibitive. Just for example, adding on to the jail for the JCAP space and the courtroom was $1.2 million, and they would have needed every bit of that square footage, even and then some. And then you also would have had to pay to change the drawings, and so you know, I can't say exactly how much, but I would estimate that it would have been another $2 million to add space for probation to the new jail. So, and I feel very comfortable saying that. I'm confident of that. So we felt that we were, you know, Baker Tilly guided us through that process of being rated by Standards and Poor's and finding out what we could borrow. And we were maxed at that time. Like we were looking at Fulton County's costs of around $25 million, thinking that that's what we were going to get, and it ended up being more 30. It was 34 and some change before soft costs. So it was significantly more expensive, and Baker Tilly was advising at that time we couldn't afford more. We were maxed out on what we could afford. So, and you know, they were basing that on the projections for the lit tax. You know, the lit tax is healthy today, but it seems like maybe projections for this year are a little bit lower than they were last year, and that's going to be based a lot on your unemployment rates and what's happening in the economy, and so you certainly couldn't overspend, because it's a game of what if, right? Because and at that time we had brought forward a lot of cash reserves, and we ended up borrowing somewhere around $24 million, and the rest was paid for with help from the Redevelopment Commission and cash reserves that we had on hand, and CEDIT and ARPA and other sources of funding. So that's why it wasn't included in the new jail. It just was too cost prohibitive.
How did these other buildings compare when you went through the parish and the Reef buildings? What were they like, and why you're not considering them?
Well, I'll let Rob share. Even just this morning, we heard from Jerry Reef on monthly rent for the building that Farm Bureau Insurance is currently occupying. They're vacating, and I think it's reasonable, Rob, if you want to.
So you mentioned the parish building, and that's one that engaged Rusty Parrish, the owner, and he's really open to anything. He would sell the building, he would rent the building, he would keep the building, but that one would need some repairs and modifications. Probation staff's been through it. All 3 commissioners have been through it.
Is that the one on Van Buren?
Yeah, Van Buren and I think North Madison. It's been a funeral home. It's been a doctor's office for the last 6 years. Parish Oil has just been using it for storage and some office space. I think it's of adequate space. It would need some tweaks and modifications. And Mark Sturman, maintenance staff's also been through it. So it would need some TLC, touch some things up. Probably nothing remotely close to what Bowen would need. It's a good location. It's not right on the courthouse square like the Bowen building is. It's about 1,500 feet from the old jail, I guess would be kind of my guesstimate. So that is still an option that is there if that's what we want to pursue. So I guess we've tried to engage, and why maybe a big reason for this meeting is to gauge council's appetite, whether we're more interested in buying a building and owning it, fixing it up with all the obligations and costs that go into that, or the possibility of renting a building where you don't gain an asset, but you also don't gain all the obligations and things that would be required of ownership. So just this morning, Jerry called me and he said he taped this to the door of his shop, and I ran out and grabbed it. So this is a quote on the existing Farm Bureau building. If you're familiar, it's out close to the new jail. It's an excellent location. Farm Bureau is through their changes in their business, they're vacating that office this summer and moving to a different office in town because their needs have changed from how their business is. And so I don't know. I mean, I can read this. I can pass it around, whatever you want. But are you familiar with the Farm Bureau building that I'm talking about? I mean, and it's move-in ready. It's furnished. It's a beautiful building. It's I don't know. I would guess it's probably 20 years old or so. It's at 607 North Opportunity Drive, Columbia City, Indiana. Letter says, to Whitley County Commissioners, offer to lease the existing farm office building on Connection Way in Armstrong Park, Columbia City, Indiana, as follows. The all brick building consists of 4,532 square feet with a 350 square foot covered porch. The lease amount per year for a 3-year lease would be $19.14 per square foot, or $86,742, which comes to about $7,200 a month. It says we would, meaning we, that Reef Enterprises would provide and pay for property taxes, building insurance, lawn care, snow removal, HVAC building repair and maintenance, covered entrance porch, lighted roadside signage, the furnishes stay, which he guessed as far as, and nice furniture, desks, chairs, everything that a typical office building would have. He said it's worth around $50,000 worth of furniture that's there that stays with the building. Light bulb replacement as required. County leasee would pay for the following: the monthly NIPSCO gas bill and the monthly Columbia City utilities billing. And then it says the county would have the first option to purchase the building if and when I decide to sell the building. Respectfully, Jerry Reef. So that is certainly an option, and I know that kind of maybe sounds like a high number, but when you consider what you would be getting and less obligations from a repair standpoint or the cost of ownership, it's definitely something to consider.
So did you have, on the parish building, did you get a quote on to rent that?
We don't have a formal quote. We've had some conversations, but I didn't know. I've had conversations with Mr. Parrish and told him that if we were to buy the building, we'd have to have it appraised and pay the cost of the average or less of those 2 appraisals, which he was open to that, and there's actually 2 smaller lots that would go with it that have frontage on Van Buren Street. They're just kind of grass and landscape, like flower beds and stuff right now. So we don't have formal cost numbers there, but he's very open to doing that, and both buildings are available. The owners have said if anyone wants to tour the buildings or anything like that, they're ready and willing to show.
And of the other locations that we looked at, they just weren't suitable, right? They
Yeah.
just weren't big enough. They couldn't accommodate our needs.
Yeah, if you know, the building where the Farm Service Agency and the National NRCS is, also out there on Connection Way, we looked at that. There's 3 separate office facilities in there, and the one that we looked at that's currently vacant, it's been a dentist office, I think, at one time, and it just physically wasn't big. It had the multiple entrances, restroom facilities, but probation has significant needs in terms of locked record retention, and it just wasn't physically big enough, I don't think, was kind of the conclusion. And then we also looked at one here downtown, and it was kind of it was a design flaw. It just wouldn't have met their needs for what they need.
And of course, we will be keeping them in Columbia City. I mean, Joan, you had called and asked why not South Whitley or Churubusco, and my feeling on that is that they need to be in close
Well, that
proximity
was
to
just
the
for short term
jail
till we found out what was gonna happen. I mean, you're scrambling for somewhere to put these people, and if we can't find anywhere, maybe, I thought, well, maybe there would be an option in South Whitley or Busco for a short time period. It would not be ideal, which I stated, but at least it would give more time, and that's why I presented that question.
The city isn't, from what I've known, and spoke to Mayor Daniel, the city isn't in a huge hurry to get probation out from the basement. It's just the cost of paying utilities and all that. I mean, because it's for the entire building. You can't just, it's not just for the basement, so.
Well, the issue
get
was,
it.
I toured it yesterday, it was better than what I anticipated when I walked in. I thought it would be worse. But I see the biggest problem with them where they are is security. And no matter where they go, the biggest problem is going to be security. So as we do these discussions, we need to keep that in mind. How are we going to do the security? Because really, they're in a dangerous situation, really, if something happened, because there's not anyone there to help them. I think that's pretty imminent right now, that needs to be taken care of. I don't know why they don't have security.
Well, I
didn't
could
get
tell
into
you that I've offered security multiple times, and we've said that we would come alongside probation and we would work with the sheriff's department and provide security, but I think it's been said multiple times, thanks, but we don't need that right now. But if we're going to be in place for a more extended period of time, we'd like to have that.
Okay,
So
but is that gonna follow through?
It has been part of the conversation.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Is that gonna follow through to whatever new building we go to? If it's not in the jail like it was previously, how are we going to purchase or lease a building and do security? I mean, it's all together.
Well, the problem is too, when you lease and you don't purchase, you're limited to what you can change, because that building owner is going to say, no, I don't want you to do this to my building, because it reduces the saleability to the next tenant, whoever's going to buy it. Because if it's set up for security for what Ed's going to need, then I mean, how is that going to be desirable to somebody who wants to start an insurance company?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, and I emailed you all, I really don't think that purchasing a building is in the county's best interest. I don't think that leasing a building is in the county's best interest, especially when you look at projected tax reduction over the next year or so. I don't think it's fiduciary, whatever, that word. I don't think it's responsible of us to purchase anything, to be honest with you. I really don't. Especially when we don't know what taxes are going to look like. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but I think that probation needs to move to branch court. and extension needs to move to the basement. That would be the most cost prohibitive, and allow for the least expense to the county.
Well, there would be, when that possibility was looked into, and Mark can again mention that, there would be significant needs in terms of redesigning that area to
Sure.
meet their needs. And the other issue is, Extension has significant foot traffic from the public at multiple times a year. And the load on the parking facilities, the building itself would be significant. And then just the physical size of that space, even though they would have access to meeting rooms and things like that, I personally don't feel that that's a good viable option for the needs of Extension. Because if you look at it, and it's something that we need to really consider, Extension, I keep hearing it in meetings, and 4-H this and 4-H that. Extension is way more than 4-H. It touches virtually every age group in our county. They're in all of our schools with STEM projects and things that are not an overlap of what the school is currently providing. I talked to a local administrator at Indian Springs, and he said, "Oh no, it's way above and beyond what we can do. It's needed stuff." You have Extension homemakers. You have Master Gardening. They assist with the agriculture community. Kim and I are farmers. We have to have a license to buy things we need, like chemicals, and they help manage the renewal, making sure your license doesn't expire. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Extension is a very, very important department to a rural county. Now, if we were Lake County, Marion County, Allen County, yeah, probably not as much, but we're Whitley County. We're an agriculture community, so Extension is very important.
I understand, and I'm not disagreeing with you that extension is not important. Don't misconstrue that that's what I'm saying. I think you guys do vital work in the community, and I'm grateful that you're here. However, it's a security issue that I really think probation needs to have a standalone building, and without putting an extremely high cost to our taxpayers, that's our best option. We don't know what the future is going to bring, like I keep saying, with our tax base. And to me, it makes sense. And even, let's say you're only there for a couple years, and the price comes down. Real estate's going to come down. It ebbs and flows. That's the nature of real estate. In a few years, maybe it's a different story. Our taxes are leveled out, or at least we know what's going to happen with the bill through the state. And then we make a purchase. I'm not saying it's forever. I'm just saying it's for now. Does that make sense?
I would just piggyback off of what you're saying. All the departments are important, but especially with Senate Bill 1 passing, we have no idea what that's going to do to us. And for instance, the longevity pay that we just got passed. And Joan, I know you touched on it. You said we don't know what it's going to do. Well, so now we can't award our faithful employees. To look at the entire county and every department as a whole, it makes sense to not purchase anything. I know right now, and even Jason stopped by, Kyle, Mark's assistant, is spending almost 40 hours a week out at the jail at the detention center for various reasons. It's a big facility. So it's coming. Mark will need another full-time staff. That's just how it is, especially if we add another building. He absolutely, they're working overtime. If you remember, I think it was $20,000 that he asked to get moved over because his guys are just working that much. They can't maintain what we have. And I know, Jen, you had mentioned that a grant was going away for 2 of your positions. We can't not fund probation. People are put on probation because they did something wrong. Sometimes it's minor, sometimes it's major. That is something that we don't have a choice. We will have to fund those. I'm not saying extension's not important, so don't misconstrue that. Don't say that. Please don't put those words in my mouth. But probation also does a lot of good work. I know, Jen Patrick, you had really put a spotlight on it. These people that they serve, a lot of us do want to pretend like they're not here and our community is great and whatever, but, again, they're put on probation. They're not just, it's not so much punitive, but they want to also help these people. These people have kids. These people are going to grow up and live in Whitley County. We want to give them a chance too, right? We want them to be good taxpayers. We want these kids to have a chance that were, born into the family that they didn't get to choose. They touch lives too. I don't think anybody becomes a probation officer because I want to lay down the law and I can't wait to do A, B, and C. No, you do it because you want to help people. So I don't think that's highlighted enough, and they're very important, and they do a lot of good work for that lower socioeconomic class of people that we do have. Again, extension's important. I don't want you guys to think that at all, but as the executives of the county, we have to think about everybody. And we're not saying you're not going to have a program, you're not going to do this. I know, Rob, you mentioned a ton of great programs. We're just saying it's got to be here. You'll have full access to conference rooms A and B. And also, I spoke to the mayor, and I know Commissioner Banks, he spoke to Tad Varga, city councilman. We're most likely going to be doing a swap with them on parking lots. So the one that's right next to the Van Buren Flats, we're going to be taking that, and then they're going to be taking our lot on Van Buren and Washington. Their only ask was that we make it look nice. Obviously, it's in the city. So our employees at that point would then park over there. So that would alleviate the issue of parking. And at some point, it may not be in our tenure here, but the county will grow and they will need more spots. There are a lot of times there are no spots out there, and it makes sense. The city would like that spot, and we would like their lot next to it. So again, it's not that all the departments are not important, but looking at the financial implications of it, and especially Mark having to take on another person, and the safety aspect of it as well. We want to talk about budgets all day long, but if something were to happen to them, we would be sued. If my husband was a probation officer and everyone knew the issues were happening and something happened to him, I would absolutely sue whoever was responsible for it, because we are responsible for it. So again, and it's nothing, and I know some of you guys are probably upset with me on my views of it, but it's nothing personal. I still appreciate you all, but I think the best solution, it's not a perfect solution, but life's not going to be perfect. Every situation won't be perfect. So I think the smart thing to do would be to modify the basement, and I would ask that we take the financial burden of that out of County Gen, move them down there, and then get probation set up into a permanent location that we would own. They also have a lot of files they have to keep under lock and key, so that also becomes an issue with the tenant and the landlord. And there are different ways we've spoke about it with Ed a lot on securing that building. So yeah, if you have any questions, but like Commissioner Banks said, we have explored absolutely every option. So don't think that it's not, that we haven't been diligent on it or we haven't done our duty, because we have.
Ideally it would have been wonderful to have this at the jail, and since that's no longer an option for us, I would like to pursue the information on the Parish building. I would like to go see it, and I'd like to see what kind of figures the party comes up with. I think that's a good location. I think it has future building purposes with the 2 extra lots in front, since we're landlocked at the jail. I think it would be suitable for the county for future purposes. I would totally be interested in seeing what those figures would come in at.
So what happens though in a year if we were to pursue that? And I'm not saying you're wrong. So what happens in a year though when the projected $2.5 million tax shortfall that we're supposed to have affects our ability to pay employees? It affects our ability to pay longevity. And it affects people's lives in real ways because we decided to purchase a building instead of use what's available to us. That's my biggest hang up on buying anything or leasing anything. It's the effect that it's going to have on people in a year or two. which is not very long away, not very far away. That's really where my mind is at, is what's the effect in 12 to 18 to 24 months.
Have you went over and toured the extension office to see how extensive it is? Have you went over and looked?
Not extension, but
I don't know how the extension office would fit in the basement. They would have to
They
do
won't.
away with some programs. I don't know how they would operate. So you're talking about losing programs.
no, I'm not talking about losing
How would you
programs.
fit it in
What I'm
down
talking
there?
about is saving people money until we figure out what's going to happen with this tax bill. Until we can get a flat line on what our taxes are going to look like, what our revenue for the county is going to look like. I don't want to lose programs as much as I don't want to not be able to give people a raise next year or to pay any of Extension's programs that they're already doing. My thing is we just don't know what the costs and what our revenue is going to look like. I don't think fiscally that we can do it without cutting something somewhere else. I don't see how it's possible. I mean, unless somebody has a better idea, a better
We're
option.
we're discussing the Owen building figures, so why aren't we discussing the parish building figures?
To me, the Bowen, I won't vote for the Bowen Center. Absolutely not. You're $400,000 in the red already as soon as you buy that building. That makes no sense to me at all. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're red, blue, green, purple, or black. $400,000 to the negative, you will never get your money out of that building, ever. It makes zero sense at all to purchase that building. I will never vote yes for that building.
So we've not yet had the parish building appraised because we were needing to have this conversation to gauge what you guys were thinking in terms of interest in the other options. But I would be open to having it appraised and seeing what it really would be, because I think the number, even with some repairs to the building, would be far from $400,000.
Well, and the repairs to the building doesn't include setting probation's needs up. That's an addition. So
No,
it's
well,
on
I mean,
top of
it would,
that.
the building's fine. It's a 40-plus-year-old building. I'm not sure how old it is. Just like any building, there's you have to take care of it. But I think it's closer to being a usable facility than the old Bowen building is at this point.
My view is, I'll just end my conversation on it. I don't feel we should be moving extension. I think they need every bit of that building, and I would like to pursue the parish building. That's my opinion.
Again, it's going to come down to cost. I mean, because we're going to have a cost, and let's say that what my vision comes true, right? So extension moves to the basement, probation moves to branch court. Let's just say that's happened. There's going to be a cost in moving. There's going to be a cost in rehabilitating downstairs and that building. I would like to know what those costs are going to be, and I would also like to know what the parish building appraises for and what the cost is to move probation and get it set up the way that is. I don't think we can make a decision until we get relatively hard numbers on it.
So can I ask this, is there any other option in the government center? I heard some comments, I've received some phone calls about there may be ways to adjust some space here. So I know we've talked about the basement and then the extension office, but is there other spaces here that we could look at using, sharing, things like that we could make an adjustment? I struggle with buying something right now, just with we don't really know what's coming with SB1. I think that I'm not sure it's responsible for us to buy something at this point. I'm not opposed to looking at some numbers. I was able to tour with Ed and Jen last week, but I want to see that for myself. I think we need to move them sooner rather than later. There are substantial security risks down there that we need to address.
Well, that's what makes the parish building so desirable, because he's open to purchase or rent.
Which
You
building
could
is
rent
that
until
again?
we find that out, to see if we could purchase.
Right, and whatever move we make, I think we should try to look at using our existing,
Oh, okay.
what we own now, possibly.
Yep.
Maybe it's just
Okay.
temporary. Maybe we do move and we buy something down the road. I just think
Lots of questions with where we stand with SB1 and how it's going to impact, our taxes and what we're going to receive. I think at this point it might make most sense for probation to go to branch court. It's just my opinion.
So as far as in the building, your specific question, last week, an option presented itself. Actually, the planning director, Nathan Bilger, had said he would be open to moving his department down to the basement. There's a significant large storage room at the end of that hallway, because they have a lot of record retention also. And if you've been up to their department, it's full. There's not hardly a square inch in there that's not utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly extension could go there. It's not.
That's awful tiny. You've been in.
It's less area
It's so
than
small. There's one office in there.
Well,
downstairs.
I'm just addressing his question specifically about the building.
Yeah, that was thrown out to me that maybe there's a way to, use the space we have here and make some adjustments and make it work. So I'm just throwing it out there to see if we can look into that.
Building's pretty tight otherwise, aside from the space downstairs, and I don't see how that would work.
Okay.
Mark, could you talk about, is Mark still here?
He's right here.
Oh, hi there. Could you talk about the repairs to the parish building? Because I know we talked about them, and I wouldn't say they're insignificant. And sort of my opinion on it was, I think it's like 15,000 square feet. The cost is going to be very high with that. So coupled with the location of probation, or coupled with the location of the Bowen Center, that's why, as I said in my email, that I thought it would be smarter to do that. And again, we're still buying another building. And I was looking for your email on all the laundry list of repairs. Could you I couldn't find it. Could you pull that up, or, because I know there was like a foundation issue.
For the parish building?
Yeah.
We didn't put any numbers together. I can tell you what we noticed while we were there. There are some HVAC issues with the building. There's some roof issues. I didn't really notice any foundation issues. But again, that building, lacking a water softener, all the fixtures have to be replaced. Toilets, sinks, faucets, everything. There is some drain issues as far as the plumbing drains with that building. They actually shared with us. I'm not sure what that looks like. The repairs, we'd have to look at that and put some numbers to it. But as far as retroing it to probation's needs, I don't want to step on Ed's toes. I'm not sure exactly what that would be. We did talk briefly about the entrance and making some changes there. I didn't think those were significant at all. As far as the other needs, I'm not sure what he would be.
Ed, have you seen the parish building? Did you see the parish building?
Yeah, a few times.
What do you think of it?
It could definitely, with the space and the layout and the repairs that Mark and some other ones that we've discussed, potentially be location suitable with not only a layout to help with security, but I'm not saying our department's going to grow anytime soon, but there was ample square footage there.
Thank you.
Todd, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. You can answer however you like, but can you just briefly talk to us about your five-year plan? If you've shared it a little bit before, and I think that could be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So, yeah, first and foremost, I understand the decisions that you all have to make, and I understand what's may or may not be coming down the line with Senate Bill 1, and I do understand that obviously the cheapest route is to use what county already owns. That makes sense. But from my standpoint, it is the space. Our building is roughly a little over 5,800 square feet. As to what Mr. Banks pointed out, that may be a little skewed. I'll give you 800 square feet because there is 4 restrooms in our building. But I would say we comfortably use 5,000 square feet. And where extension is at today, and looking at the space in the basement of this building, you're looking at just under 1,700 square feet. I know there's access to meeting space. But that doesn't include what we house in terms of what we utilize for programming. Just for the 4-H end of what we do, everything, if you want to talk about traditional 4-H, which is the fair, which everybody knows, that eats over a third of our upstairs. Yes, I know that's seasonal, but that's stuff we can't get rid of. That's stuff that, come the 4th of July, I move all of that stuff to the fairgrounds and everything is used. The rest of the stuff that's mainly downstairs, really on the north hallway in our building, is all 4-H, and it's utilized all the time. We're supposed to be at a program up in Northern Heights today working with a grade level, so the whole back room, there's a whole section just stacked full of stuff that was gonna go. So concerns if we were in the basement, one is constantly moving stuff up and downstairs. Where are we gonna load at without blocking a public entrance? How many trips would that take to load up? Back at the end of April, we hosted STEM Fest out at Indian Springs Middle School. Had to get an enclosed trailer to pick up, and plus we used a van and an SUV. We made 4 trips to get everything there, 4 trips to get everything back. So that's a huge concern on our staff. We have 5 full-time staff members in our office. We have 3 part-time staff members. So looking at the layout in the basement, the square footage, as a department head, I'm gonna have to say, I'm gonna fit the people and leave programs behind, or I'm gonna fit the program material and leave people out. I can't fit everything, so I'm gonna have to make that decision if that's where we're gonna go, and just say, folks, you're gonna have to work remote, you're gonna have to, I don't know, you're gonna have to stand in the hallway, because we just won't have room. Be more than happy to invite you all to the extension office. I'll walk you around. I did with Mr. Schumann, and went around and I said, I'm all about getting rid of stuff we don't need to keep. Get rid of stuff. We're not just collecting stuff. And I went through, and I think at the end of our tour through our office, I might have filled a pickup bed, maybe. And the bulk of that was furniture. Going, obviously, if we go there, this can't go, that can't go, this can't go. But when it comes to what we do in the community, the programs that we do, everything from seniors clear down to kindergartners, you're either asking me to leave it out or leave people out. And that's really the only thing that we can do there. So to go on with what's future vision there, when this came about a couple months ago, my vision is to get us a permanent home on the fairgrounds. That's going to take some time to get that done. People have asked, where are you going to put it? It's going to go out at the North Point. So out in that V right when you come off US 30 on the Lincoln Way, huge grass area there. If you're there during fair time, that's where everybody parks livestock trailers. It's not the floodplain. It sets up nice and high. There's plenty of space there to put a building.
There used to be houses there.
Mm-hmm. So that's my future dream, is to get something put together that we can get the funds, we can put up a building on the fairgrounds that would become a permanent forever home of the Whitley County Extension Office. But to build it in such a way that we're not just putting up an office building. I want a learning space on it. As many of you know that have been to our building, we don't have that. Our meeting room seats 12 people, and it's packed if you're in there. So we have no programming space unless we utilize the fairgrounds. But by doing that, every time that we do that, we take away rentability for our fair board. And that 4-H center is their only mechanism to generate revenue to keep the lights on and pay the bills. Other than that, they just have Fair Week. And what they make out of concessions and grandstands, that's it. We're one of the unique county fairs in the state that we don't put up a gate, we don't charge entrance, we don't charge to park, we don't have a carnival. Everything is straight through just concessions and grandstands and local community support, which is awesome. And kind of reverse thinking, that's actually what keeps them in the black. And that's why they're not in the red doing all this other. You think you're going to generate revenue and it doesn't work. So my hope is to put together, hopefully work on some grants to get funding going. If we got to do a capital fund drive, then we'll do that. Hopefully to get ground broke, hopefully then we can sit down with you all to come up with whatever a contract would look like once that process gets going, or what's the agreement between us and the county, if it's janitorial services or whatever, to make that work. So how quickly, talk to Mr. Schuman, I would love to say 3 years. 3 years, either that ground broke. I think I'm probably a little ambitious to say we'll have a building up and be ready to move in 3 years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd say at this time, we'll open up public comment. So if anybody would like to come forward and speak, this would be the time to do so.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Ed Beaver, Chief Probation Officer. I just want to thank everybody for coming together, having this open conversation with no perfect solution. There's a couple things. Many of you, and I appreciate it, came and toured the probation department. The reality is we do need a new place to go. And now I know we've spoken about security. As many of you have seen, it's a decommissioned jail. So if we were to drop in a person, having a completely unmanned, unsupervised first floor. On the basement level, where we currently exist, multiple open vacant areas. So even if we drop one person there, it's not secure. Security is both a measure of staff as well as the layout. And not only from a security standpoint, but from a functional standpoint, it's not an appropriate location. That's kind of the main thing I wanted to say. No matter what place we're looking at, it's going to need some modifications because it's not any pre-existing building designed for our purposes. So that's all. Thank you. Or if you guys have any questions.
Well, we've talked also that, and Mark can attest to this or talk about it, but we've saved the old security equipment for the entrance to the courthouse. Before the previous commissioners put the entrapment areas in and all that, we had just a regular scanner that people would walk through. And Mark, what else did we save or set back? There was a...
We have a spare X-ray machine.
Yes.
If we wanted to utilize it, and then, like you said, the walk-through scanner that's available.
Yeah.
For use.
And so my thought is, if we want to use that, we've got it in storage, we've saved it, and if we and I've said this before, if we want to add a member of security, we could set that down, and they could act just like they do for courthouse. When someone arrives for an appointment at probation, they could be utilizing, security could be there on post and utilizing that equipment, and they would have to, maybe have a quick search and come into their appointment. So that is one solution, and it's one that I've been supportive of since the very beginning. Like, I want to support you and your needs for security. So if that's something we need to do, we'll do it.
And I think I've mentioned to most of you guys my temporary modifications I've made with my staff to try to help with security. And I appreciate where you're coming from, and I know that we're all trying to solve this. I guess my biggest thing in response to that is, if we do have somebody checking somebody in at the front, but there's an altercation in the basement, we've had very oftentimes an inoperable elevator where this person's gonna have to sprint down the steps to be able to.
Yeah, I don't mean having them set up upstairs. I meant having someone downstairs. I mean, everyone has to come downstairs to see you, right? So I mean set up security right there in that open space off the stairwell and the elevator before they come in to see you. I don't mean have them posted upstairs.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
And I appreciate that. Again, still, my other argument to that would be operationally. I think we still need to be aggressively pursuing a new location, whatever that is.
Yep,
But-
and you've heard today that that's exactly what we've been doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what temporary or how long the solution is, but I think this is a conversation we'll have to continue.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm gonna come up here. I want to. So I'm just here on behalf of prosecutor's office. I know DJ, did everyone receive the letter that DJ wrote on behalf of probation? Really, I understand that this is a difficult situation and that you have difficult decisions to make. But I want to make sure that our office is impressing upon you the importance of the safety of probation, but also is my understanding that part of the plan is to put an indoor park into the old jail, and we're putting probation in the basement of that. I think there's been some conversation of they can stay forever. Putting a park in a place where we have sex offenders is not acceptable. Okay, probation services sex offenders, that's a level 5 felony. They cannot go there. So it is, I don't know what their timeline is. I don't know how long they're expected to be renovating this first floor, but there's some talk about putting a park into this location. That's a big concern of ours as far as public safety and probation. Again, I'm just here to reiterate, make sure that you receive DJ's letter in support of making sure that we get whatever option is available for probation done quickly, because it is a safety concern as well as just a public concern as far as the type of people who are being serviced in this location. Thank you.
I just got a couple things to say. I appreciate the fact that you brought up that you didn't want to invest $1 million in
Bowen
building
Center.
downtown. But on the other hand, it was brought up like these moves may not be temporary, may be something might come down the road. And we also need to wait to see what the ramifications of the tax things that was done in Indianapolis this year has on the county's coffers. So maybe if it's not temporary, this move is not temporary, maybe we ought to look into that, what it takes for that Farm Bureau building, and rent it for a couple years until the county gets in the shape to build its own facility out at the jail site. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but it may be, maybe 2 or 3 years rent might be better than making a mistake. And when these offices move, it's a major disruption, regardless. So there's no sense of disrupting 2 offices when you can just disrupt 1. That's all I got. That was my thinking after I listened today.
Is there anyone else, please?
I haven't had any input today, so
Well-
if it's okay, or you want to wait until you close that?
Yeah, we'll close that, and then we'll absolutely have that opportunity.
Hearing no more public comment, I will close the public comment section of the meeting.
Now I'm ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all yours, Tom.
Number one, I'm not in favor of buying or renting anything. I think we have too much empty space. We've got a basement here that's basically not being used at all. Last Friday night, I went to Extension office to judge scholarships, and I walked out of there, I think, at 1:15. So, you know, if you want to bring Extension here, you're going to be here. Those doors and elevators are going to be run a lot. I have no desire to move Extension at all. Leave them set. Probation, I'm worried about you, but I think we got enough empty space to utilize. In 5 years, the annex, courthouse annex is gonna come up, whether we get that back. And then Extension just told us they were hoping in 3 years they would have a new building and that courthouse over there would open up. It could be 4 or 5, I understand that. But $1 million for the Bowen Center, and how much money do we give them a year? Don't we give
$250,000, I think.
Bowen Center like
75?
Yeah, so there's a state statute that says that we have to have a
I know.
community mental health provider.
Yeah.
And so the state forces us then to pay
Okay.
someone who's eligible to be a community mental health provider, and
Okay.
in Whitley County, ours is Bowen Center. So
Okay.
I think it's based on population, and it's somewhere around 300,000.
Okay, yeah. All right, so the next thing, the drug task force was here, so that end of the building's all open, but they moved to the new jail. Why can't we, and this is a question, I'm just asking, why can't you move them back here and put probation out there? I'm just asking, I'm just throwing out ideas.
They need 7 offices at minimum, and
That-
they have to be private offices.
I'm just asking, I've been through jail, but it's been a while since I've been out there, I don't want to spend any money. I don't want to rent, you know. So I'm thinking of that, plus I did kind of some research on my own, the metal detector at the courthouse. If you bring probation here, you could put it at an entrance and they could come through there. And this is really out past. We just redid the community corrections. Is there any room for them there?
We'd have to look at the floor plan. and
That's-
see
I'm
what
just
reduce-
asking,
Yeah,
I'm
if
just-
you want to reduce the capacity, sure,
I'm
absolutely.
just
yeah.
throwing out ideas on that. So, you know, and I pay attention to the emails that auditor and assessor are putting out, and I think we're gonna have some serious questions to answer next year. Some serious questions and cuts. So, I'm not in favor of renting with the empty space we have here. I think Mark's crew can revamp some stuff and get us where we need to be. You know, look at a 3 or 5 year plan and go from there. So,
Do you know how many offices are used at the jail?
nope, don't have any idea. So I'm just trying to throw out ideas so we don't spend any money more than necessary, but I'm worried about your protection. I'm worried about the youth, that we need to keep that up and running, doing everything we can there. So that's where I'm coming from.
So I'm going to chime in on moving probation downstairs and why I think that would be a bad location for them downstairs. It's because of the clientele they have that are coming in there, and it's a single entry and exit point. I don't think, in my opinion, that is a safe location for that department to be.
I would agree with that. And also, if they come in and they are drug tested, and if they drop dirty, they're arrested on the spot, correct?
Every situation is different, but that
Yes.
is a possibility.
So, I don't know if we really want those people being drug out of here when people
Yeah,
are in here paying property taxes, coming to a meeting, coming to see us.
I don't think that's safe for the
Mhm.
probation staff or the clientele or the other people in this building to house them down there. It's just my opinion.
Jason, flip-flopping those offices, does that look like that could be doable?
To bring them out there,
Mhm.
we have no room.
I don't know how much room is utilized.
All of it. We have one empty spot that's probably the size of Candace's office in that whole building. So back before, when this all design phase, before I was even sheriff, and kind of Chad touched on this, when that building was designed, it was based off other jails, like you guys went and toured. We were not allowed to do anything structural to the building. So as far as expanding anything outside, so like our building is designed for what we have for now. We have one extra office in the whole building, which IT is currently using to build computers and work out of, that's up in the admin spot. Everything else is accounted for. So every office has somebody in it. There is no extra offices. We tried to utilize like an empty space, that would have been our intake center. What we currently have where the cars go in for the intake for, to do prisoners and things like that, we were gonna double that and put just a block building on the opposite side of that for future expansion and for garage space. And just that block building alone, no plumbing, no flooring, no anything, was $600,000 just to block that. So cost effective, it wasn't worth trying to just do 3 block walls to double the size of the intake for that later. So it was just so expensive. In the beginning, like Chad said earlier, we were given that outline or that footprint of that building. Anything structural was not allowed to be moved. Anything interior that wasn't structural could be moved around, so you could create different office space, or you could move this office to this and create things depending on the workflow and how he did it. And that's what Sean did for his jail space. But as far as going structural, it would have had to go back to an engineer. You'd have had more, obviously, in the footprint of the building. You'd have had engineer costs to okay that blueprint, so then you could move forward. We were not allowed to do that since the beginning when this building was thought about. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
So my question, if Extension's goal is to have their own building within 3 to 5 years, right? That's what you said, roughly, as long as all the numbers work out. If we were to move you guys somewhere in a building that we already own, save that money, and instead of paying a lease for whatever building or purchasing another building and modifying it, what if we take part of that money and dedicate it towards helping you guys have a permanent space on those 4-H fairgrounds somewhere? That way, you know, you can kind of, you get time obviously to design it the way that you think it needs to be designed. We get hard costs in place. We take care of probation and move them to branch court, whatever it's going to cost to do that within reason. But then you know that it's temporary. And we kind of just struggle along as we can, you know. Yeah, we may need to cut some programming. We may need to. That's just, I mean, it might be inevitable. But again, with the uncertainty with our tax revenue, I think we have responsibility to do, honestly, and this sounds terrible, but as little as possible. And it's just a thought, but at least it's path forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we could consider, something we would appreciate if the county was willing to do that. My only fear is moving 3 to 5 years out. I don't want to damage the growth that we've had on my end, the youth, as well as with Health and Human Sciences, Ag and Natural Resources. And we are such a public-facing office, as some of you know that you've been to our office. Just a quick number just from yesterday. We had 49 people walk in our door yesterday. They're not going to do that at this building. Number one, parking's a huge issue. Yes, I know that there's potential of another parking lot coming, but where will you park those cars? Are they going to walk in here, walk down the stairs to find us? I think that will damage us being a public-facing office. And yeah, struggle on programs. What do we cut? What do we leave behind? What do we get rid of? And then what do we look like in 3 to 5 years? And I don't want to lose that. And I can only speak on, obviously, my programming area, which is 4-H youth development. Last year, in the first time in 25 years, we broke 900 kids in the traditional 4-H program. We're totally bucking the trend across the United States in growth. Total reach of youth by our 4-H program here in Whitley County last year, top 2,400. This year, we're on track to top 3,000. That's just not kids that we've shaken their hands. We've actually been in the classrooms. They come to us for different programs that we've offered. That's not counting kids twice. There's over 6,000 kids that attend school in Whitley County K-12. And my goal has always been, if we can't reach 50% of them, I'm not doing my job. Because we are the only after-school opportunity for youth that's not sports-related in the county, that's consistent 12 months out of the year. So any kid can engage with us, do whatever. You don't have to be an athlete. And it's been great, the relationship we've built up with the schools, and I don't want to lose that because we've lost our tools to make those programs happen.
So, and just so I can better kind of understand your needs, I mean, aside from programming, let's just talk space.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were able to store the things that you need to store, either on-site or off-site, if we were able to figure that out, as far as like either having them in this building or working with 4-H somehow, I don't know if they have storage. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But if we were able to figure out storage, I think that a little bit of temporary pain, and this is just me speaking from my own like experience on budgeting and taking care of business, because sometimes you got to cut things. And I'm honestly, I'm really not trying to say that the extension office and what you guys do is unimportant. Please don't think that that's what I'm saying. But I am going to prioritize their probation's physical safety over programming for agricultural. I have to. I feel like the headway that you guys have made since you've taken over that position has been, I mean, you can't deny it. However, I feel like fiscally we have to do something. We have to do something that costs the county as little as possible until we figure out, again, what the next few years is going to look like. But if we can figure out to continue, sorry, squirrel, if we can figure out kind of the spacing issue and, you know, get you guys moved to a location within this building, I think honestly that's going to be the most cost-effective thing that we can do. Yeah, and it may hurt for a little bit, but I feel like with as good as what you are at your job, I don't foresee it being a huge problem. But that's me not knowing everything about what you do. So take that with a grain of salt.
Sure, and I appreciate that. And I'm all about solving problems, so that's why I said I would love for any of you to come to our office. We can walk you around, show you what's there. If you're like, hey, yeah, there's a space that you know somewhere that this could fit, I'm all ears. Just inside on the fairgrounds, there's only 2 facilities that are temperature controlled there. One is the Ag Museum, the other one is the 4-H Center. And as I shared, the 4-H Center is the only mechanism our fair board has for revenue. They rent that out. If you saw our calendar, you would see there's very little available time in that building throughout the entire year. It's just booked, whether it's wedding receptions, it's graduation parties, it's reunions, it's other organizations that come in and rent out the facility. The Ag Museum's a little more difficult. There's lots of antique stuff in there from Whitley County. So finding storage space in there would be really hard. And the other facilities are just not something that you can store in. I mean,
I'd like to come and take a look because
absolutely.
I may have a solution, but it wouldn't be up to me, so I would have to bring it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see what you're talking about, like specifically what you need to move and what, all that stuff. So if what I'm thinking can come to fruition, I mean, it's a big empty open space that's climate controlled. So
yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, I'll get a hold of you.
Okay.
Chad, are the plans to move the corner with them, or what are we doing there?
Yeah, so there's other space in this building that will accommodate the corner. The health department works very close to the corner, and the health department has offered some space inside their area. The question then would be, what about the storage? The coroner currently has 2 rooms and a hallway down the hallway from his current office that he has storage items in. And so I met with Ed Scott from EMA, and and looked at some space on that side of the hallway that perhaps the coroner could store some things in. And one thing that Scott had mentioned was they meet with next of kin or family of the deceased, and they needed some sort of like a conference area. And so that's why I think the health department will be really ideal for him, because there is a small, maybe space for 6 people at a conference table in a closed door environment. So we're working through that right now.
Okay.
And that's new breaking news for Scott, so I haven't even checked for acceptance on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Just to speak to Chad's, yeah, we do have a quote currently and money to pay for a spot where they could have 2 desks that have access to the computer and phone jacks for this building. And space for the printer as well. We have a small conference room that could be a secure setting for them that we don't use that often. So whether it be a temporary or a longer than temporary position, I think we'd be more than willing to accommodate them as a solution to what's going on.
That's great news.
If I may, it's gonna have to be a temporary situation. My county is running into the problem, we're holding bodies. We can only hold bodies at the forensic center for 8 hours after autopsy. 16 times last year I had to transport a body to Huntington for holding. This year we're already at 6. We're at record numbers again. It's sad. We're having a lot of tragedies in our area. You know, I know it's not budget friendly, but it is the state statute. I brought it up numerous times that I have to hold the body in my custody. I cannot release it to a funeral home unless the next of kin approves it. At this time, the stats are showing most people don't know what funeral home to call anymore. They don't know. They just went through a tragedy. I had that happen to me last Saturday, where it was 48 hours before that family made a decision on what funeral home to use. The statute's clear, I have to hold the body. And then you go into the health department side of it, and the body has to be cooled during that time. I told this county back in 2004 when I was the coroner the first time the statute, it's not a new statute, but we were gracious enough to have a forensic center that had a facility that could hold the body. When they built the new facility, they did not make it big enough to hold. They are double stacking deceased human beings in the cooler. And it's making it a very undesirable situation for any county. Kosciuszko has holding, Huntington, Wabash, Marshall, Allen is getting ready to put their new facility in. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go by the state statute. So it's something that you as council, you as commissioners, it's not gonna be a 5-year project. It's gonna be an immediate project. Sorry.
The only thing I have to say is that, you know, I totally agree with Nick. Now's not the time to be buying anything. We need to use what we've got. Because been about 19 years ago, 20 years ago.
2008.
We looked at most of, just a handful of them out there that was here at that time when we were working the budget was red for 2 years. And we looked at you in the face and said, where do you want to cut your budget? They said, we're not going to cut our budget. And I said, it's better you cut it than I cut it. And it all worked out, but there's a lot of them in here can say they never got a raise for about 2-3 years. So I don't want that to happen again. So I think we got to watch what we do. We can't spend money like that. We should never spend money like that anyway. As far as building new buildings, you don't have any ground to build buildings on. So we just need to use what we got and make it work. Everybody's got to make it work. That's the only thing I got to say.
I'm in agreement with Nick and Kim on it. 2008, we required all department heads to do a 20% budget reduction, and there was no raises for 2 to 3 years on it. We have no idea what our projected revenue is going to be on it. The Department of Local Government Finance will someday tell us what the predictions are on it. So I am not in favor of purchasing any buildings, leasing any buildings. I think we should utilize what area, what facilities we have, make an adjustment, and see what occurs within 2 to 3 years.
I think council's probably been pretty clear with you guys. I'll just maybe wrap it into a ball from my opinion is that you three are in a very tough position. But you've taken on the responsibility of being in that position. You're going to take a lot of heat over making some really tough decisions. I think you can see, and it's my opinion too, I do not have an appetite to buy a building, to spend a lot of money. I feel like, although it's not ideal for everyone, I feel like we do have the space that we can make work now. Todd's got a 3 to 5 year plan. We've got a 5-year plan on the building that we already own as far as space being available. We have adequate space. I would encourage you guys to make some tough decisions on how we can move people around to best utilize that space and not spend money purchasing or renting at this time.
Thank you.
Need a new pen, Tiffany?
No.
Is there anything left on the agenda or on the table, Commissioner Banks?
Nope, that was the only item on the agenda. I think everyone's made their positions clear.
Is there anything left unsaid that anybody would care to have the floor for, please, from the commissioners or from the council? Thank you so much. I will at this time close my portion, the council's portion of this joint meeting.
Anything either of you want to add?
Nothing.
Then at this time, I'll adjourn the commissioner portion of the meeting.